Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 75 for season 2025. We've got another AFLW episode coming up today. We're going to be going through all of the round 8 action from last weekend. We'll review each match, look at the best players, all the numbers you need to know behind every team's wins/losses from last week. We'll then jump into a quick preview of round 9. Coming up this weekend, it is a massive weekend for the context of the season. We're officially 2/3 of the way through the year. Every match is very important for any team currently in contention of making the finals. So that's the plan for today. If you're new around here, my name is Jay. We do this podcast twice a week. Every Monday, we are looking at the AFL men's season. Obviously, that has wrapped up, but we're right in the midst of trade and free agency right now. So we'll be wrapping all of that up in next Monday's episode, so make sure you come back for that. And every Thursday episode is our AFLW episode. Obviously, we're 2/3 of the way through. 4 more weeks, and then we're into finals, so plenty more AFLW content coming out over the next few weeks. So make sure you hit that follow button or subscribe, depending what platform you're on. This podcast goes out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts twice a week. Every week for the next few weeks, and then we'll cut back to one towards the end of the season. But that's basically who we are, what we do. We do a lot of football content, obviously. We don't do too much of the bullcrap around media and stuff. We try to keep it football related. We don't get caught up with debate too much, and we just focus on football. So that's what we're here for. Pretty much no further ado, we're going to jump into it and start working our way through the 9 matches from last weekend. While we get them up, don't forget to head over to the social medias as well. We've got All Aussie Rules everywhere. So there's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm sure there's others. Blue Sky, kind of Facebook. So go check it all out. Plenty of content all over the place. All Aussie Rules everywhere. Round 8 kicked off with the Hawkers playing the Dockers, and Hockball got over the line at Kinetic Stadium on Thursday night last week. A pretty close game, in all honesty, as a lot of Hawthorn's games have been this year so far. They've played in a lot of close ones, and this was just another that was like that. It ended up being a 15-point win to the Hawks. The game started pretty level peggings. Freo did kick the first goal through Hayley Miller about 5 minutes in. And then Hawthorn kicked the next 3 to lead comfortably 18-7 at quarter time. There wasn't a whole lot of scoring after quarter time, though. Just the 1 goal to Fremantle in the second quarter to get them within 2 points at half time. Just the 1 goal to Hawthorn in the third quarter, which put them up by 9 points at 3/4 time. And then 1 more goal to Hawthorn in the final quarter, ends up winning by 15 points for the Hawks. Not the most dominant win of all time, but they certainly did do a good job. Team rating 57-18 for Hawthorn and a 55-33 for Fremantle suggests it was a pretty close game. BNF votes, so our 3-2-1, basically the women's version of the Brownlow, just to keep track of that. Lucy Wales, I've gone 3 votes. Kiara Bowers 2. And Jasmine Fleming from the Hawks gets the 1 vote from us. This was the battle of the best 2 rucks in the competition at the moment. Lucy Wales and Mimstrom going head to head, and Lucy Wales got the coins, I guess. The coins, the cake, whatever. The biscuits. Lucy Wales was on top. Really good game from Mimstrom. She was probably still Fremantle's best, but I think Lucy just edged her in this one. They are, I think, clearly the best 2 ruck players in the competition at the moment. Obviously, there's players like Matilda Scholes who is working their way up there, but at the moment, I think it's clearly these 2, number 1 and 2. I've always been in the Mimstrom camp, but Lucy Wales is certainly catching up quickly right now. MVP votes, if you're new around here, we do the All Aussie Rules rating system. Which rates every player from every single game using a wide variety of stats, put it all together in a blender, and it comes out with a rating for every player. Top 5 players based on those ratings for each team get votes for every single game. So the winning team gets 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2 for their top 5 players. The losing team get 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 for their players. And yeah, that goes towards the league MVP that we do at the end of the season. We'll show you the leaderboard midway through this episode once we've looked at all 9 games. And it also equates to like the club best and fairest that we do as well. So just a little bit of information there. So Hawthorn's top 5 players, number 1, as we said, was Lucy Wales. Fantastic match from Lucy. Next was Emily Everest with 8 votes. 6 goes to Laura Stone. 4 to Aid McDonough, who's playing a great season as a key forward this year. Kicked another goal in this game to go with, I think, 4 from the previous couple weeks. And then the 2 votes for Hawthorn goes to Jenna Richardson to round out their vote getters. For Fremantle, it was Mim Strom with 5 votes. Emma O'Driscoll with 4. 3 goes to Kiara Bowers. 2 to Megan Kaufman and 1 to Gabrielle Newton. Your 5 vote getters from the Dockers. Overall, I think it was a pretty even game. Fremantle actually won the inside 50 count. They had more of the football. And on the road, they played okay. It certainly wasn't their worst performance of the season, but Hawthorn did what Hawthorn have done a lot this season and just were good enough when it mattered, both offensively and defensively. It was a very contested football game. It was a lot of tackles. Hawthorn 108 to Fremantle 92 tackles. So Hawthorn were plus 31 on their average in terms of tackles, and Fremantle were plus 12 on their average. So that just tells you what sort of game of football this one was. And Hawthorn just too good in the end. So that sits them third on the ladder, the Hawks. 1 game plus a fair bit of percentage behind Kangaroos in first, and just percentage behind Melbourne, but a long way in percentage. They've scored 230 less points and conceded an extra 30 than Melbourne have so far through this season. A fair bit of that has to do with opposition, but a lot also to the fact that Hawthorn have not been smashing many teams. They've been winning. They've won 7 out of 8 games, but most of them have been close results. I think St Kilda was maybe their biggest win, and that was 23 points for the season. Most of them have been up like between 5 and 15 points, really. But third on the ladder, they have Gold Coast this week, which is a massive game for them. If they can knock off Gold Coast and get a little bit of percentage, it would be really, really beneficial for them. Gold Coast currently sitting last on the ladder, so it shouldn't be the toughest game, but sometimes you can't write anyone off. Look at what happened between Adelaide and Richmond on the weekend. We haven't got to that game yet, but that's just a sign that most teams can beat most teams on their right day. I think the only real exception to that is the Kangaroos, who just are clearly classes above everyone else at the moment. Fremantle, however, that's a bad loss for them in terms of their season. They're currently 3-5 with 4 games to go, where their percentage is as well at 64%. They would have to win all 4 games, I think, to have any chance on playing finals football this year. And they have a really, really tough task this week against Melbourne, who are second on the ladder, and most people's number 2 seed when it comes to winning the premiership this year. So it's a do or die game for Fremantle. They lose that, it is officially season over, I would say. But as it stands, they win it, maybe, just maybe. There's a little bit of a pulse in this Fremantle Docker 2025 season. Moving on to the next game from the weekend. It was Friday night. It was Melbourne-Essendon. This was actually a pretty entertaining game of football too. You take out the first 10, 15 minutes, and it was very, very close game. Melbourne end up winning it by 14 points over the Bombers. who have really, really been struggling to find a win over the last 5 weeks now, I think it is roughly. Yep, they've lost their last 5. That was correct. They won their first 3, lost their last 5. So there has been a couple tough games in that. Obviously, the last 2 weeks they've played first and second on the ladder, so it hasn't been an easy run. But a couple of the losses before that, they were probably a bit disappointing overall. Melbourne kicked away early in this. Taylor Harris got the first one only inside of the first minute. Then goal, and Harris kicked a second. So 8 minutes in, they're 3 goals to 0. And it's looking very much danger signs at 19-0. Less than 10 minutes into the game. The Bombers did manage to get one back before quarter time through Grace Brooker, so it was 19-6. Only one goal went to Melbourne in the second quarter. They led by 19 points at half time. Third quarter, Melbourne got one more through Megan Fitzsimmons to be up 33-9 at 3-quarter time. The only goals in the final quarter went the other way to the Bombers through G and Holly Ridewood, who got them back within 14 points, but it was too little too late. That was a couple minutes to go when Holly Ridewood managed her goal to get them within 14. So overall, Melbourne probably the better team, a bit stronger in this one, and they get the 4 points. Team rating 62-4-7 of 55-8-7 for the Bombers. So that suggests that Melbourne were the better team on the day. They weren't as dominant as they have been through a lot of their games this year. But the Bombers were pretty good against the Kangaroos last week as well. So I think Bombers are probably the team that are most underperforming over the last 5 weeks. I think they're a lot better than what they've shown. And the last 2 weeks have certainly been an improvement. League best and fairest votes in this one. 3 votes have gone to Maeve Chaplin, 2 to Georgia Nanscowan, and 1 to Taylor Harris. Our MVP votes for this one, Melbourne Demons obviously were the winning team, so they get the 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. 10 to Maeve Chaplin, 8 to Taylor Harris, who obviously kicked those 2 early goals. Shelley Heath gets 6, Megan Fitzsimmons gets 4, and Kate Hoare, who is always there or thereabouts for the Demons, gets the 2 votes. For the losing team, the Bombers, it goes 5 to Stephanie Kane, 4 to Georgia Nanscowan, 3 to Stephanie Wales, 2 to Sophie Alexander, and 1 to Madison Gay. Any team stats here that stand out? Bombers did have actually more disposals in this game, but Melbourne had 14 extra inside 50s. Melbourne won the clearances. Bombers dominated uncontested football, but they also turned it over a lot more, +4 times on the Demons, and +7 on their average. So not great numbers there. Overall, I think Melbourne were the better team on the day. The Bombers put up a bit of a fight, but just didn't quite have the class in the end to quite go with Melbourne. Melbourne, they're sitting second on the ladder with an almost 300% percentage at the moment. 7 wins, 1 loss. Actually conceded less points than the Kangaroos have so far throughout this season. They have scored 120 odd less points than the Kangaroos though, so really, really good season for them so far. They're pretty much guaranteed a final spot. Well, they have with their percentage. You'd have to think it would take 4 absolutely massive losses in a row for them to miss from here. They're looking good for a top 4 spot. Right now, they're 2 wins plus a healthy percentage ahead of 5th. You'd have to think they keep winning, they'll be fine. They've got Fremantle this week, which is a massive game, as we already mentioned, in Fremantle's season, but also Melbourne, so they win this one again. Making finals looks even easier, and also top 4 is looking stronger, and maybe even top 2 is looking really strong. So big game for the Demons. The Bombers on the other side of the coin are in a very similar situation to Fremantle. Their percentage is slightly better than the Dockers, but not by much. They would have to win probably all 4 games coming home, I think, to have a genuine chance of playing finals. and they play the Doggies this week. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. It's probably a game that, on paper, they should win the way they've played the last 2 weeks. But you can never fully write these Bulldogs off. They absolutely smashed Collingwood a couple of weeks ago. And they weren't bad against Port Adelaide last week. So while the dog season officially is pretty much over, they can't play finals from where they are, or very, very unlikely at least. Yeah, you can't write them off, I don't think. So a big game for the Bombers. They lose, their season's done. They win. Potentially, they still have a slight pulse. Moving on to Saturday football, and we kicked off at Henson Park in Sydney. GWS beat the Saints, and St Kilda won it by 14 points. It wasn't pretty for the Saints, who were certainly expected to win this game, but in the end, they got the job done, and that's pretty much the main thing that matters. St Kilda kicked the first and only goal of the first quarter, Jamie Lambert. The Giants kicked the one and only goal of the second quarter through Fleur Davis. That was a cracking goal, by the way, from a ruckman from the boundary. Fantastic effort. Game opened up for the Saints in the third quarter, and this was where they did their damage. Kicked 2 goals very quickly by the 5-minute mark of the third quarter. To give them that break, they got another one late in the quarter, again through Jamie Lambert, to give them the 20-point lead at three-quarter time, which, when GWS only had 8 points on the scoreboard at this point, you'd think they're pretty safe. The Giants did kick 1 goal in that final quarter, but it was too little too late, and the Saints won it by 14 points. Team rating suggests it was a very close game. 51-7-2 for the Saints, 51-2-1 for the Giants. Our BNF votes for this game, we went 3 for Jamie Lambert from the Saints, 2 for Caitlin Sirhoy from the Giants, and 1 for Tiana Smith from the Saints. Stats were all in favour of the Giants, in all honesty. They had plus 50 disposals. They had 13 extra inside 50s in this game. They won the clearances by 1. They had extra 43 uncontested possessions. St Kilda did win contested possessions, though. It's just one of those games where you look at some of the stats on the sheet and you say, how did the Giants lose this by more than 2 goals in a low-scoring affair? You would have thought. Giants went plus 8 on their average for inside 50s and just couldn't find a way to kick goals. 2 goals for. Just not good enough at creating the opportunity from what they had in the end. And the Saints were the reverse. They did enough and get the 4 points. MVP votes for the winning team. First of all, St Kilda Saints. 10 to Jamie Lambert. 8 to Georgia Patricios. 6 to Tiana Smith. 4 to Charlotte Simpson and 2 to Serene Watson. And then on the other side of the fence, for the Giants, it was 5 for Catherine Smith, 4 for Megan Brazendale, 3 for Rebecca Beeson, 2 for Caitlin Sirhoy, and 1 vote, for Cambridge McCormack. Moving on to what that means for both of these teams. The Giants, their season is wrapped up. I mean, we kind of knew it was. They did win those 2 games back-to-back a few weeks ago against the Dogs and the Swans, but 2 losses in a row after that has officially put a nail in their coffin. At 2 wins, 6 losses, the maximum wins they can get to is 6. Their percentage is nowhere near high enough to compete. So you can put a line through their season, I think. In all honesty, it's been an okay season. They didn't look great early, but I think recently they've looked okay. They got Geelong this week down at the Cattery. Cats are fighting for a final spot, so I think that will be a really tough prospect for them. I think what we've seen from them so far this year suggests that they shouldn't be getting the wooden spoon, but they are probably going to be bottom 4, you would think, based on what we've seen so far. St Kilda. they're in the 8 at the moment. They're sitting smack bang in 8th spot. 5 wins, 3 losses. Percentage right around about the 100 mark. They've won 4 in a row, and they've got their season back on track. It's been a weird and wonderful season for them so far. But 4 wins in a row, beating the Bombers, the Tigers, the Power, and the Giants. Granted, 3 out of those 4 wins are against teams fair way down the order. All 4 of them against teams not in the 8 currently. Port Adelaide, the only one that conceivably could make finals, I think, out of those 4 matches. Maybe the Bombers with a lot of luck. But the winning form is good form sometimes. So I based on what they've got coming up, they probably can play finals because they play Collingwood this week, who are sitting 16th on the ladder. You would imagine that is going to be a win, which will put them, they're already in a really good spot, if we're being completely honest. In terms of the ladder position, they're 1 win ahead of 9th and 2 wins ahead of 10th spot. So they win this week, and they could conceivably be 2 games inside of the 8 after round 9, which would be massive for the context of their season. The issue, of course, with that is what have they got coming up after that? Because they have had a pretty easy run, let's be fair. But obviously they do play Collingwood this week. After that, it gets a little bit tougher for the next 2 weeks. Carlton, who are currently in the top 4 spot, and then the Kangaroos at North Hobart Oval in round 11 before the Doggies in round 12. So if they can beat Collingwood and the Bulldogs in the run home, that would give them 7 wins. As long as they can get some percentage out of those 2 games as well, you'd think that's going to be enough for them to play finals. It's not the easiest run home, but where they are right now, finals is certainly on the cards for the Saints. So that's everything from that game. We'll move into North v Sydney. 4 weeks ago, this looked like it was going to be game of the round. Both teams were flying. Sydney's season has kind of stalled a little bit after a really, really good start. The Kangaroos, though, are looking very, very good. They are absolutely flying right now. They win this one by 68 points. The first quarter was kind of close on the scoreboard. It did feel like Sydney were probably a little bit behind them, in all honesty. They competed well, but they made use of their opportunities going forward, whereas Kangaroos didn't quite so much in that first quarter. It was a 15-13 lead for the Kangaroos at quarter time. After quarter time, it just blew out kind of quickly. 3 goals through the third quarter to the Kangaroos, and then another 5 in the third quarter, and then another 3 in the last. Interestingly enough, pretty much the first 3 quarters within 30 seconds of each of the quarters, first 3 quarters, the Kangaroos had a goal. So it was 33 seconds into the first quarter, Jenna Broughton got a goal. It was 20 seconds into the second quarter, Vicky Wall kicked a goal. And then it was 33 seconds again into the third quarter that Jasmine Garner kicked the first goal. Unbelievable centre clearance work out of to start each quarter there. The fourth quarter did kind of ruin it. They didn't even manage a goal until the 14-minute mark of the final quarter, did the Roos. But they absolutely smoked them, 68 points. It was never really in doubt. It was an okay start for the Swans, but you just kind of felt like they were just a few levels behind the Kangaroos. And the team ratings suggest that 82-52 is a big difference, and that's pretty much what the Kangaroos are doing to most teams. They're getting so much of the football. They're averaging like 70-odd possessions more than any other team in the competition. It's absolutely ridiculous, scintillating football. They had an extra 126 disposals than Sydney in this game. The biggest stat is inside 50 count. It was 57-16. That is incredible. 41 difference in an AFLW game is ridiculous. So Kangaroos had an extra 10 inside 50s than their average. Meanwhile, Sydney had 18 less than their average. So 3 goals 2 from 16 inside 50s isn't that bad, in all honesty. But they just couldn't move the ball. Kangaroos were dominating clearances 29-13. That's where they did the damage. 12 centre clearances to 3. They would get the ball forward and Sydney just couldn't get it out of there. Zippy Fish was trying her absolute best to run and gun it out of there, but on the most part, the way the Kangaroos just set up is just so good. Every single player on that team knows exactly where they're supposed to be at all times, and they just make it an absolute nightmare for you to move the ball. You can get it to about the 50-60 metres out from your defensive goal, but they've just got you set up and strangled into it, and they force the turnover or the stoppage, and then they dominate out of the stoppage, and they get the ball going forward again. And that's the story of this game. Uncontested possessions, 226-126. They just looked after the footy. They did everything they needed to, the Kangaroos, and this was as impressive of a win as they've had this season. It was absolutely fantastic. B&F votes. Ash Riddell, we've gone with 3, sets an AFLW record again. She just keeps beating her own record. This time, 45 disposals in the game, 25 kicks, 20 handballs. Unreal game. Jasmine Garner gets the 2 votes, 29 touches and 4 goals. Ridiculous. And Mia King, we've gone with 1. I think Riddell and Garner definitely get 3 too. 1 vote could go to Soupy Fish, maybe. Played arguably her best game of her career so far, was really, really good with 34 touches. Mia King, Ruby Tripodi's in there. Tess Craven was really good early. Amy Smith will be up there. But I think the top 2 would clear in this one. MVP votes. Highest rated player was actually Jasmine Garner, even though Ash Riddell had 45 touches. Jazz Garner was absolutely fantastic. As we said, 29 touches and 4 goals. Is in the conversation right now for leading goal kicker for the AFLW this season, which is another ridiculous stat. She's missed a game. She's a full-time midfielder, and somehow just keeps on getting goals. Kicked 4 this week. For the season, just 1 behind the leader. Chloe Malloy currently leading the pack with 17. Garner with 16. So she's 1 off the leading goal kicker in the competition so far this year. That is crazy to think how that's happened. It's unreal. Worth noting also that Ash Riddell is currently averaging 37.3 disposals per game, which is freakish amount of disposals. Sorry. Next most in the competition is Laura Gardner with 30. So a full 7 disposals per game less. That's wild. So anyway, votes. MVP. Jazz Garner, 10. Erica O'Shea gets the 8 for 19 disposals. And good efficiency, I guess. 6 to Ash Riddell, which is ridiculous that she wasn't higher than that. 45 disposals. 4 for Emma Kearney off the halfback flank. And Ruby Tribodi, where has she come from? 2 votes in this one. Outstanding again. Had a really good season so far. For the Swans, clear best player was Zippy Fish. Absolutely unreal game. 34 touches, multiple intercepts, and a lot of metres gained. 722 metres gained, which is a lot, especially in this game. When you consider Sydney's next best metres gained was Chloe Malloy, who's played at least half this game in the forward line. Played a little bit of midfield time as well, but just 331 metres gained for Chloe Malloy. So that's almost 400 metres less than Zippy Fish. So that just shows you how important Zippy was for the Sydney Swans in this game. 4 to Brown Tarrant in the back line. 3 to Sophia Hurley, who I think kicked a goal in the early stages was solid enough. 2 to Laura Gardner, who had 30 touches, not her best game though, and 1 vote to Tanya Kennedy for the Swans. That wraps up that game. Just a little look at where that is for both teams. Kangaroos 8-0. They play 17th on the ladder. Richmond this week. I don't think it matters who they play right now. They're just winning games of football and winning them comfortably. They move to the 1 game and a little bit of percentage ahead of Melbourne. You'd have to think that there's no way they're not finishing top 2. And it's very, very unlikely to see them dropping out of first because it's hard to see anybody beating them based on what we've seen from them so far. The Sydney Swans, their season is on the line this week and next. The next couple games are huge for them. They've got 4 games left to make a statement. They won their first 4. They lost their next 4. They're sitting 9th on the ladder. 1 game outside the 8. They can maybe lose 1, maybe 2 games coming home and still potentially play finals. But it's getting to the stage where many more losses and they're in trouble. And their next 3 are not easy. Carlton, who are in the top 4 right now, followed by Melbourne the week after that, who are second on the ladder. Then they've got the Eagles, who are playing some pretty good football. And then they finish with the Bombers. So after 4 weeks, you would have said they were almost certainly playing finals football this year. But this little stretch that they've got, those couple losses that they copped to Collingwood and GWS might well bite them back here because this is a really tough stretch. Obviously, Adelaide into Sydney, into Carlton, into Melbourne, into the Eagles is a really, really tough 5-week stretch. And it turns out now that they need to win probably 2 of those next 3 and then beat Bombers in the final round to hypothetically be playing finals, which would, it's not going to be easy for them, I don't think, looking at what I can see. So it'll be interesting to see if they can turn their season back around because they obviously have talent. They started the season really well, but they certainly are struggling to get a win at the moment. Next up, Gold Coast hosted Brisbane in the Q Clash, and this one went just about how we expected. The Brisbane Lions absolutely controlled it. 11-17-83, so they could have kicked straighter, and this would have been an absolute whitewash. 2-3-15 for the Suns. The Lions started, 2 goals 7 in that first quarter, so a lot of their poor kicking was early. Imagine if they were 7-2 at quarter time. It would have been a really big margin, but it was Courtney Hodder who was doing the damage for the Lions. She had both goals in the first quarter and then kicked, I think, their second goal of the second quarter to have 3 by half time. Got another one as their first in the fourth quarter as they just kept extending their lead, and Gold Coast never really looked in this match. Team rating suggests it was a flogging 76-37. BNF votes, we've gone Courtney Hodder 3 for her 4 goals, Isabel Dawes 2, and Ali Anderson with 1 vote. The team stats tell you the same story. Brisbane 50-19 inside 50s, so that's plus 31. Another game, 2 games in a row that have been absolutely dominated like that. Sending clearances 10-4, clearances 30-18. So it was just an all-round domination from Brisbane. They controlled the football, they controlled the ground, and hypothetically probably could have won by more than they did. With a bit better kicking in front of goal, and better conversion basically. MVP votes for this one: 10 goes to Isabel Dawes, 8 to Courtney Hodder, 6 to Sophie Conway, 4 to Jade Ellinger, and 2 to Kathy Svark. And then for the Giants, for the Suns, the 5 votes for the Suns goes to Charlotte Wilson, 4 to Charlie Rowbottom. That's why I was confused. I was reading the wrong sheet. Lucy Single with 3, 2 to Mira Gervin, and 1 to Annabelle Kivett. Rounds out all the votes for the Gold Coast Suns. Both of these teams are in completely different spots. Brisbane, they're fighting their way back. They've won their last 3. They had a little bit of a sloppy start to the season, but they certainly seem like they're getting their season going. They have had a reasonably easy run playing Bulldogs, Gold Coast last week, and the week before was Richmond. So their last 3 weeks, they've played 14, 17, and 18th currently on the ladder. So they have had a little bit of an easier run over recent weeks to get their season back going. It's not going to be that simple coming home. It will be slightly tougher than that, obviously. But they're certainly in a spot right now where they can push towards top 4. They should probably beat Port Adelaide at home this week. Then they have Bombers and they finish with Collingwood. So there are 3 games that they should win. The big one's going to be round 11 against Melbourne. There's some big games in round 11. So stick around for that. That will probably be one of the better weekends of AFLW for the year. But a big game against Melbourne, that one. That could be top 4 on the line. It could be top 2 on the line, depending on what else happens this season. But that's going to be a big, important game, that one. The Gold Coast Suns, they're 18th on the ladder. They play Hawthorn, who are 3rd on the ladder this week. It's hard to see them winning that one. It's hard to see them winning many games coming home. There's not many teams that I would be backing them against. However, their last 3 games are probably just about as easy as you could get. They've got Bulldogs in round 10, who are 14th on the ladder. They have Collingwood, who are 16th on the ladder in round 11 at home. They're both home games for the Gold Coast Suns. And then round 12, they finish with the Tigers, who are 17th on the ladder. So if they are going to win a game coming home, they get every opportunity to do it. They haven't been great this season. Maybe they can turn it around in those final 3 games. But this week is going to be a tough one for the Suns. Moving on to Saturday night game, and it was Port Adelaide hosting the Bulldogs. And Port Adelaide won it 8-6-54 to 5-5-35. The Doggies kicked the only one of the first quarter through Riley Wilcox, who's having a really good season. Second quarter opened up a little bit, but the Doggies still led by 7 points at half time. But then the Power turned it on after Elaine Grigg for the Doggies kicked the first of the third quarter to give them that 13-point buffer. It was all downhill skiing the other way coming home. The Power kicked the last 6 of the last 7 goals, sorry. The Bulldogs did kick the last goal of the match, but the Power did kick 6 goals before that to go from almost 3 goals behind to comfortably up by more than 4 goals. At one point, end up winning by 19 points. I think Port Adelaide showed the class in the end. They haven't been super consistent this year. They've dropped some games that perhaps they would have liked, but this one, they didn't fall into that trap. It was a danger game for them at many parts of this match, but in the end, their class did prevail. Team rating 52 to 49, so says Port Adelaide was slightly better without being sensational. BNF votes, we went Abby Dowrick 3 for Port Adelaide, Isabel Pritchard for the Bulldogs with 2 votes, and Indy Tahu gets the 1 vote. From Port Adelaide, disposals, Bulldogs were plus 50. Port Adelaide are a low disposal team, comparatively to most teams in the competition, but still 50 less disposals. They did have 4 extra inside 50s though, the Power. Clearances weren't too much of a discrepancy. It was uncontested football that the Bulldogs were really good at, but they were also pretty solid at contested and the turnover game. Unlike most games this weekend, both teams under their average, just 58 for the Bulldogs. So they looked after the football pretty well. Just couldn't quite move the ball well enough to create those opportunities for the amount of football extra football they had. They didn't get quite enough inside 50s or enough reward for their effort, I don't think, in the end. And Port Adelaide get the win. MVP votes here. Abby Dowrick gets the 10 for the power. Matilda Schultz gets the 8. 6 to Ashley Woodland. 4 to Tegan Germich. And 2 to Indy Tahu, who kicked 4 goals from 9 disposals. For the Bulldogs, 5 goes to Kaylee Kimber. 4 to Alice Edmonds in the ruck. 3 to Isabel Pritchard, 2 to Ellie Blackburn, and 1 to Ellie Bennett. Rounds out the votes. Both these teams are in similar spots on the ladder. This did put Port Adelaide 1 game ahead of the Doggies and kept their season really alive. They're 3 and 5. Their percentage is healthy enough. They are 2 games out of the 8 with 4 to play. So they do need to win games. And they played Brisbane Lions this week. So it's a really tough one. They lose that and they would have to win all 3 of their games coming home to play finals. And that's not going to be easy because they play Hawthorn and Adelaide in that run. You'd have to think they're going to have to pull something out of the hat to play finals based on what they've got coming up. They play 3 genuine finals contenders in their run home. It's going to be tough for Port Adelaide to play finals based on that. They beat Brisbane this week, and all of a sudden we'll be talking a different story. But right now, I think they're certainly good enough to be a top 8 team, but we just haven't seen enough of it or consistently enough of it so far this year. Meanwhile, the Doggies, their season, you can put a pin in it. 2 and 6 with 4 games to go. They'd have to win all 4, get a decent percentage boost as well. I just don't see that happening. They don't have the toughest run home, if we're being completely honest. But it's not super easy either. They could genuinely win all 4 games. They play Bombers this week. They play Gold Coast next week, the week after. So definitely 2 winnable games. They aren't favourites this week against the Bombers, but I could see them winning it. So those 2 are definitely winnable. Geelong will be a really tough match. And then they finish with St Kilda, which will also be a tough one. So they could win all 4, but they also could lose all 4. I genuinely don't see a world where they finish in the finals. But if they won all 4 and some other results go their way, maybe, just maybe, there's a slim chance for the Doggies this season. Moving on to Sunday football. And this is the biggest upset of the season so far, without a doubt. Unbelievable result from the Tigers. They've threatened it a couple times this year. They have not been a team that should have been 0-7 in my opinion, but they just couldn't get over the line against anyone. They just didn't quite perform well enough most weeks, but they turned that around here. 8-10-58 against 6-11-47. The Crows really struggled, and the Tigers just played really well. Early in the second quarter, it looked all over for Adelaide's sake, but the Tigers just stuck around. Quarter time, it was Crows by 5 points. They then kicked the first goal in the second quarter to give them a 12-point lead. The Tigers got it back within a kick, but at half-time, it was 11 points to the Crows. It then went goal for goal. Richmond won and then Adelaide won to be 10 points at about the 10-minute mark of that third quarter. And then in the space of about 5 minutes, the Richmond Tigers turned the game. Caitlin Grazier, Ellie McKenzie and Mon Conti kicking goals each in the space of 5-6 minutes to give them the 9-point lead at three-quarter time. And you just felt Adelaide will throw everything they've got at them this quarter. Ciara Greaves got the first goal of the fourth quarter for the Tigers, and you're like, okay, maybe this is the Tigers' day. Adelaide then peppered the goals, missing quite a few. They got one to get within just under 10 points, so just over a kick in it. But Ellie McKenzie kicked a third to seal the game for the Tigers, and they held on. The Crows kicked 1-5 in that final quarter, so it could have been very different if they had have kicked straight late, but in the end, both teams weren't overly efficient in front of goal, and the Tigers, I think, were the better team on the day, and they get the 4 points. is basically the long and the short of it. Team rating 60 for the Tigers, 55 for the Crows. Tells you everything you need to know. Just slightly better, the Tigers across the board. +6 inside 50s for the Tigers, +20 disposals. Crows did dominate clearances, +7, but outside of that, it was all Tigers football. They looked after the footy well. They tackled pretty well. They did everything they needed to. It was a good all-round performance from the Tigers. 3 votes. No surprise here. Monconti was unreal. 34 disposals, 10 tackles, 5 clearances, kicked a goal. Was absolutely unreal. 2 votes to Ellie McKenzie, who had 24 touches and 3 goals, which is also a really, really good stat line. And 1 vote to Ebony Marinoff in the loss. 27 touches, 6 clearances, 10 tackles for Ebony. MVP votes, once again, Monconti, unreal game. Has been an absolute shining light for the Tigers this year. I genuinely believe she's been in just about career best form this season. Unreal numbers. I definitely believe she's playing better than last season. Katie Brennan gets the 8 votes, sorry. Kicked 2 goals, 3 from 13 touches. Laura McClelland gets the 6, 4 to Ellie McKenzie and 2 to Rebecca Miller. On the Adelaide Crows side of the fence, Ebony Marinoff gets the 5, 4 to Madison Newman on the wing, having a really good year. Sarah Goodwin gets the 3, 2 to Chelsea Biddle, and 1 to Sarah Allen. Rounds out all the votes for that game. Richmond Tigers, they move up off bottom spot. They're 17th on the ladder. They play top of the ladder this week, so I can't see them winning back-to-back games. It would be an even bigger upset if they were to beat North Melbourne this week. But the win gets them off the bottom, probably keeps them off the bottom. They have a much healthier percentage than Gold Coast. And their percentage is also above Collingwood, who are 1 game ahead of them. But conceivably, they could end up maybe 14th or 15th, depending on how their season finishes off. It's not an easy run home by any stretch of the imagination, but there's winnable games. They certainly could beat Collingwood, and they have Gold Coast in that final round. So arguably two games there that they could win, and all of a sudden they might not finish bottom 4. But if they were to lose those 2, then they probably finish 17th, so, or maybe 18th, because they do play Gold Coast. So an interesting run home. Other side of the fence, Adelaide Crows just keep losing occasional games, which just keeps them out of range of that top 4 for now. They're 7th on the ladder, 1 game behind Carlton, who are 4th. Their percentage is slightly better, but so is obviously 5th and 6th on the ladder. They play West Coast, who are 6th on the ladder this week. Massive, massive game. They can't afford to lose this one if they want any chance of top 4 finish. I'm not saying that they should win it, I think, but West Coast are playing some really good football. If they do want to finish top 4, though, they have to win that, because they play Kangaroos the following week, which is going to be obviously very tough, and then run home with Port Adelaide and Fremantle, which probably are definitely winnable games. If they can win 3 out of 4, top 4 is still a chance, depending on other results, but they certainly can't afford to drop any of the other games other than the Kangaroos one. Moving on to the next game, and it was down at the Cattery, and this was probably game of the round in the end. It was Geelong Carlton. Massive game for both teams. 5-7-37 for the Cats. 7-13-55 for the Blues. The Blues just looked winning this the whole way through. 2 goals, 6-1 straight at quarter time. Had the Blues in a solid spot. By halftime, it was 32-21, so they just kept that lead up. They looked really good through most of the third quarter still, before Geelong kicked a couple late ones through Maloney and Bowen to give them a real big sniff going into 3-quarter time. It was back to 4 points in favour of Carlton at 3-quarter time. Some bad kicking had them in this situation, but the Blues just did too good in the final quarter. Darcy Vesio got the first one, and then Leela Keck got the final goal of the game to give the Blues the 18-point win in the end. 7-13, not ideal for the Blues. A lot of that has to do with Sophie Mackay, who has had an outstanding first season, but did kick 0-5 in this game. So I'm sure she'll be looking to turn that around next week and kick a bit straighter. She does love a goal, loves a goal celebration. So I would not be surprised to see her go out and kick a couple this weekend. Team rating 63 for the Blues, 51 for the Cats. So that tells you that most of the numbers were in favour of the Blues in this one. BNF voting, I've gone 3 for Abby Mackay, or McKay, sorry. 2 for Mimi Hill and 1 for Aaron Fitzpatrick. They had plus 40 disposals. They have had 20 extra inside 50s in this game, 3 extra clearances, a lot of uncontested football. They looked after the football, 7 less turnovers. It was just a really good performance from the Blues all around the ground up until that final finishing touch and kicking the goal. It was where they struggled the most in this game. MVP votes, winning team, Mimi Hill was the highest rated player, gets the 10. 8 goes to Poppy Schultz, who's playing outstanding first season of football. 16 touches in this game. Mainly key defender, but does rotate around the ground a little bit. Some really, really positive signs from Poppy. Going to be an absolute star, I think. 6 to Abby McKay. 4 to Aaron Fitzpatrick. And 2 to Dana Finn, who's also had a really good season so far this year. On the losing side of Geelong, 5 votes to Amy McDonald, who had 25 touches, 6 clearances. 4 to Aisling Maloney. 2 goals, 18 touches. 3 to Georgie Prasparkas, 2 to Michaela Bowen, and 1 to Jacqueline Parry for the Cats. What that means for both of these teams, Carlton Blues sit 4th on the ladder, top 4 currently. Their percentage not great, but they are a game ahead of 5th spot. Holding on to top 4 is not going to be easy for the Blues, I don't think. They've got Sydney this week. That will be a tough game. They then play St Kilda, who is a finals contending team. GWS, who they should beat. And the Eagles final week might be a game that will get them top 4 or not. All 4 of those are winnable games, but there's also 3 of them that they could lose. I think they're safely in finals now. If they can win 3 of those, they're probably... 3 of these final 4 games, they're probably safe-ish in the top 4, depending on other results. But they want to go out and win all 4 of these, I think, is probably their aim. Big one against Sydney this week at Henson Park. That is going to be huge. Geelong, on the other hand, their season is kind of like a few others, starting to hang by a thread. 2 losses in a row has been crucial for them. They're 3-5 on the year. They're 2 games outside of the 8 right now. So even though they're 10th on the ladder, they're 2 games outside the 8. 3 wins from here might not be enough for finals. 4 probably will be enough to get them into finals, but 3 will be stretching it. They play GWS this week, so that's certainly winnable. They then play the Eagles, which won't be easy. They then play the Bulldogs and Melbourne. So they're going to have to win the next 3, I think, if they want any chance of playing finals. And then it might come down to that game against Melbourne in round 12. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to play finals from where they are right now, I think. One final game for the round, and it was West Coast Eagles hosting Collingwood. And the Eagles got the job done after a really close first quarter that kind of felt like Collingwood were well and truly in the game. Things turned around. After quarter time, it was one-way traffic. 8-14-62 to 2-5-17. So both teams struggled to convert opportunities. Quarter time, it was 14 apiece, and that was on the back of 2 late goals to West Coast. One through a 50-metre penalty and the other one just a good goal. It could have been very different at quarter time if it was 14-2, for example. But West Coast did kick those 2 goals, and then after quarter time, it just was one-way traffic. They certainly were in control of the game. They were up 5-2 at half time, and then they just kept kicking goals, and Collingwood didn't kick a goal after the 9-minute mark of the second quarter. So, touch disappointing for the Pies, but on the side of West Coast, a really, really good performance. Team ratings suggest that they were completely in control, and watching the game, you'd have to feel the same, certainly after quarter time. 63-46 in team ratings. League best and fairest, 3 votes to Ella Roberts, 2 to Lauren Wakfa, and 1 to Brittany Benici from Collingwood. MVP votes, 10 to Ella Roberts, playing outstanding football. Currently the 3rd highest rated player in the competition so far this year. 8 to Lauren Wakfa, 6 to Georgia Cleaver, 4 to Charlotte Riggs, and 2 to Jessica Wrench, who's having a really good season as well. For Collingwood, 5 to Tani White, who is probably Collingwood's best player so far this year. Brittany Benici, 4, who's arguably the only other person in that conversation probably. 3 votes to Imogen Barnett in the ruck. 2 to Lucy Williamson, who has been a really good find as a late SSP for Collingwood. And 1 to Lucy Cronin, who is showing signs that potentially will be one of the best key defenders in the competition over the next few years. We didn't go through team stats, but overall, +8 inside 50s for the Eagles. Disposal numbers were pretty level. Clearances +2. So I think it was just not domination by the Eagles, but they did control it, if that makes sense. Most stats they looked better at than Collingwood. They certainly used the ball a bit better in important moments at least. They moved the ball slightly better, and in the end, they win the game of football. West Coast, 6th on the ladder. They're in a great spot right now. They play Adelaide this week. They lose. The winner of that is going to be really fighting for top 4 spot this year. The loser is going to have their work cut out for them. The Eagles, I don't think they have the toughest run home either. I mean, this is not an easy game against Adelaide. They're all against teams fighting for the 8. So it could go one of 2 ways, where they lose all 4 and miss the finals, or they could be really competitive through them all and beat the Crows, Cats, Swans and Blues, and top 4's a chance. Probably they win 2 and 2 and they finish somewhere 6, 7 or 8 on the ladder. It's probably the way it goes, but we'll see. Collingwood, their season's done. They're 16th on the ladder. They play St Kilda. They don't have the toughest run home, Collingwood, but I mean, I think objectively speaking, they have had the hardest schedule so far this year, and now they start to reap the rewards of a little bit of an easier run. They had a really tough run through rounds 3 through 6. So when they played Melbourne, North Melbourne, Sydney and Hawthorn, all genuine finals contending teams, that was a tough run. Plus they played Carlton in opening round. So the next 3 weeks are important for them. I think they are all winnable. They won't be, I wouldn't say they'll be favourites in any or all of them, but St Kilda, Richmond, Gold Coast are probably as winnable games as they're going to get. They finish with Brisbane, so if they can go 2 and 2, beating Richmond and Gold Coast, it's not all lost. If they were to go 0 and 4, then Wooden Spoon is a genuine chance for the Collingwood Magpies for the second year running. We'll go through our leaderboards for all the medals / awards that we do next. We'll do our footy tips from last week first. Sorry, I've lost the plot. So we've got, first up, we went Hawthorn over Fremantle. We got that one right. We said 11. It was 15. That's close enough. Tick. Demons, we said by 14. We said by 32. It was 14. We get it right. Margin a little bit off. We said Saints by 20. They won by 14. That's a tick. Kangaroos, we said by 23. They won by 68. They absolutely smacked the Swans. We said Lions by 46. They won by 68. Once again, it's a tick. Port Adelaide by 19 is what the end margin was, so we weren't too far off with our 9-point prediction. Then we had the biggest upset of the season so far. We got that one wrong. Richmond won by 11 points. This one, a bit disappointing. Carlton did win by 18. I thought we were going to see a bit more from the Cats at home, but the Blues are just showing some really strong signs that they are a genuine top 4 chance this year. And then we round out the week. We said Eagles by 26. They won by 45. We go 7 of 9. We're 51 out of 72 for the year so far. League best and fairest votes after round 8. This is our 3-2-1 each week. Ash Riddell is absolutely flying away from them. 22 votes after 8 rounds. She's been sensational. Kate Hall with 15 from Melbourne. Ella Roberts also on 15 from West Coast. Ali Anderson on 13 from Brisbane. Then it's Georgia Nanscowen and Isabel Pritchard, both with 12. Kiara Bowers, Georgie Prespakis, Jasmine Garner and Tiana Smith all on 11. And then Ebony Marinoff and Mon Conti on 10 votes after 8 rounds. The MVP leaderboard, so this is the top 5 rated players in each game getting votes. Once again, Ash Riddell's on top. Not by as much here, though. 58 votes after round 8. 1 vote ahead of Ella Roberts on 57. Lucy Wales from the Hawks on 55. Ebony Marinoff, 54. Jazz Garner on 52. Kate Hall, 49. Georgia Nanscowen, 46. Georgie Prespakis on 45. Ali Anderson, 43. Kiara Bowers, 43. Tiana Smith also on 43. Laura Gardner's on 41. Mon Conti on 40, and Jamie Lambert from the Saints is on 39. Just want to do a little side note. Mon Conti's on 40 out of a maximum of 45 votes after 8 rounds. Unreal numbers. Rising Star votes. So the top 5 rated Rising Star eligible players each week get votes. 5 for the best, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the 5th best. And this is how the votes stand after round 8 on that leaderboard. Zippy Fish absolutely flying away from them. 24 votes after 8 games, averaging 3 votes a game. Had a sensational year. At the moment, it's pretty difficult to see a world where she doesn't win the Rising Star this year. She's been fantastic. Havana Harris with 14 from Gold Coast, also been really, really good so far. Lucia Painter from the Eagles with 11. Jessica Wrench with 10 from the Eagles as well. Ash Centra with 9 from Collingwood. Poppy Schultz gets the 7 from Carlton. Laura Stone with 6 from Hawthorn. And then Holly Ridewood, Riley Watherspoon and Sophie McKay from Carlton, all with 5 votes after round 8. We'll now jump into our quick preview of all the round 9 games. So this episode has run slightly longer than I would like so far, so we'll try and motor through this. We'll do a quick review of each game and we'll end up with all of our round 9 tips. So stick around, probably another 5 to 10 minutes of this episode. Let's jump into the action. Bulldogs Bombers kick it off on Friday night at Whitten Oval. They've only met once before, which was round 7 last week. Last year, the Bombers won it by 23 points. I can see this being a close game. Neither team in great form. Bulldogs 1-4 over the last 5 weeks. Essendon 0-5. Bombers will be probably favourites for this, but it's a game I can genuinely see going either way. Adelaide West Coast, Saturday afternoon at Norwood Oval. This will be a cracker, I think. Both teams trying to make a play for top 4, potentially. Obviously, Adelaide's progress got a little bit halted last week with the unexpected loss to Richmond. They've met a few times. Adelaide have won them all quite comfortably. 26 last time, 33 and 38. Form suggests both teams playing pretty similar football right now. This is another game that arguably could go either way, but I just don't see a world where Adelaide don't bounce back this week. Surely they bounce back. this weekend. Next up is at GMHBA Stadium. It's Geelong hosting the Giants, and the Cats should be too strong as they make a late play for finals. They haven't met since 2022. The Giants won that one by 18 points. The year before, the Giants won by 7 points. And the year before, well, 2 years before that, in 2019, the Giants won that one by 31. So, historically speaking, the Giants have a very good record against the Cats, but it has been more than 3 years since they last met. I think the Cats are better. I know that they've struggled a couple times this year just to take that next step, losing to both Carlton and Hawthorn over the last 2 weeks. But this is a game that they should be winning. I'm going to back them in to get the win over the Giants, but we'll see how that plays out on Saturday afternoon. Also on Saturday afternoon is the Hawks and the Suns at Kinetic Stadium in Frankston. This should be way too strong for the Hawks, you'd think. They met once last year, and the Hawks only just got over the line by 13 points. But they should be way too good here for the bottom of the ladder Gold Coast Suns, who over the last 4 weeks have not looked fantastic. Let's be honest, they've lost by 46 points to Carlton, 16 points to Adelaide, 87 points to Melbourne, and then 68 points to the Brisbane Lions. So their form's not great. Hawthorn, they've only lost 1 game this year. They haven't been smashing teams, but they're doing all they need to, and they keep on winning. So good on them. I would imagine that we'll see that kind of happen again this weekend, I would imagine. Saturday evening game is one of the more important games of the weekend because it is do or die for the power, and Brisbane Lions making their push towards top 4. They've met once before, round 2 in 2023. The Lions won that one by 50 points. This up in Brisbane. Brisbane's best, I think, is better than Port's best. Brisbane's consistency is better than Port's consistency. Most things suggest Brisbane should be too good in this game, but I just always am very reluctant to rule out Port Adelaide in a game of football. They made a prelim final last year. They've beaten Melbourne this year, and they absolutely smoked Gold Coast. So there's opportunities for them. It's not going to be an easy game. They're going to have to bring their best, but maybe they will. We'll find out on the weekend. Saturday night game, on paper, going into this season, looked like a good game. Richmond struggled so far, but it's 17th on the ladder v first. Richmond v Kangaroos. Icon Park, Saturday night. This should be a good game. I think it'll be better than we expect. Even if the Tigers don't show up, this is a game you should watch. I think it's on Channel 7 from memory. Watch the Kangaroos. They are so good to watch. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're too good. It ruins the competition. Just watch these girls play. They are so good, man. Unbelievable. The more I watch them, the more impressed I am. Like, I watched their game last week against Sydney live at the ground, and what they do is just unreal, incredible football. So if you get the opportunity, go watch them live. Otherwise, do watch them on TV because they are super, super impressive. Just paying to watch Ash Riddell and Jazz Garner is worth the price of admission, in my opinion. They've met a few times over recent years. They drew in 2022. They also met in a semi-final that year where Kangaroos won by 36 points. And then they did meet last year down in Tassie in a very wet game, and the Kangaroos won that one by 12 points in a low-scoring affair. Nothing stopping these Kangaroos right now. Eventually, they will lose a game. It might be this year. It might be next year. Who knows? But they will eventually lose one, but they are so far ahead of the competition. Even if they do lose a game, they're still so far ahead of the competition in terms of skill, discipline, players, everything. They're just oodles ahead of everybody else. Sunday football kicks off at Henson Park at Sydney Carlton. Another big game. Sydney need this. Sydney need this win. Carlton, get this win, they are a genuine top 4 chance. These two teams have only met once, round 5, 2023. The Blues won it by 5 points. Right now, the form suggests the Blues will be too strong. They're 4-1 over their last 5 games. Meanwhile, Sydney have lost their last 4 and not been fantastic in too many of those games. So, paper suggests Carlton will be too strong, but definitely do not write this Sydney Swans team off. They still have a lot of good talent on their team, and I certainly would not be writing off the Swans. St Kilda host Collingwood Sunday afternoon at RSEA Park, and they all start reasonably comfortable favourites, the Saints. The Pies last couple of weeks have been very, very disappointing. These two teams' last 3 meetings, 2023, St Kilda won by 12 points. 2022, they met twice, one in each of the 2 seasons of 2022. Collingwood won by 2 points and 27 points in those 2. Overall, St Kilda are looking the better team at the moment. They're obviously 8th on the ladder, Collingwood 16. They've got 5 wins, St Kilda. They've won their last 4. Granted, not against great opposition. Collingwood, last 2 weeks have been really poor. After putting together a really good 4 weeks in a row against Melbourne, Kangaroos, Sydney and Hawthorn, Collingwood played really well through those 4 games. They came out the other side and have been smashed 2 weeks in a row, managing just 3 goals 7 across the last 2 games while conceding 18 goals 19. So they're really, really struggling at the moment. They need to turn that around. I don't see them winning this game, but I would imagine we will see a better performance than we have the last 2 weeks. Final game of the round is over in the West. It's Fremantle hosting Melbourne. Melbourne are going to be short-priced favourites, which is a little surprising. I still think Fremantle are a very good team. I know Melbourne are playing some absolutely great football this year, but I think Fremantle have the talent. They just haven't been able to put it on the board yet this year too much. Last time these 2 teams met was last year. Fremantle won it by 6 points. 2023, when they met, the Demons won by 33. And 2022, the Demons won by 30. Recent form is definitely on Melbourne's side as well. Most things are on Melbourne's side, but it is over in the West. Fremantle definitely play better this year over in the West than they do anywhere else. I can see this being a close game. I can see it happening. I still think Melbourne probably win it, just based on sheer numbers of the season, but don't write off the Dockers. Our tips for this week, and we're going with the Bulldogs on Friday night over the Bombers. Even though the Bombers are favourites, we're going the Dogs by 4 points. It will probably not happen, but I just feel like the Dogs at times show really good form. The Bombers have not been spectacular. Their last 2 weeks have been better, in all honesty, but I'm still going with the Dogs. Crows to bounce back after last week. I think they beat the Eagles by 17. I've got the Cats to beat the Giants by 37. They should be too strong, even though their form not fantastic. Hawthorn, way too good for Gold Coast. They haven't been smashing teams. I think this is the week that we see them smash a team. If they can get the run and carry, the uncontested football of Hawthorn of 2024, they will smash this game, I think. Brisbane will be too strong for Port Adelaide, in my opinion, by 10 points. Kangaroos, as we said, they will eventually lose, but I don't see it being this one. I've got them by 40. Carlton on the road by 3 points over Sydney. I tipped against Carlton last week. I'm not doing that again this week. Saints by 22 over Collingwood, and we'll round out the weekend with the Demons beating the Dockers by 9 points over in the West. That is all my tips for round 9. That is everything I've got for you for round 9 and for this episode of the podcast. It's Pride Round week 1 of the AFLW. 2 weeks of Pride Round coming up. Week 1 this one. So get your pride on. Go watch some AFLW. Cheer for your team. I hope they win. It should be a good weekend of football. This was episode 75 of the podcast. We'll be back with episode 76, which will be focused on the AFL men's episode on Monday. That will be a full trade and free agency wrap up, so make sure you come back, check that out. It should be a good episode. And then on the other side of the fence, we'll be on Thursday back with more AFLW action, with a review of all the round 9 action from Pride Round and a look to head towards round 10 of the AFLW season. So make sure you come back for that as well. Go check out all the social medias, all Aussie Rules everywhere. Like this video or this podcast episode if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe or follow depending what platform you're on. It's all appreciated. Especially go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help me get those numbers up. And other than that, I thank you for being here. Jump in the comments. Let me know who you think's going to win this weekend. This has been the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast, episode 75. My name is Jay. Thank you for watching, and I hope your team gets the W this weekend.